Bennett. What is the first word that comes to mind? Destructive?
Hey, Cass.
Yeah?
I have a quick question for you.
What?
How long have you been fucking Nate Jacobs?
Loving?
If you so much as go past first base with my little sister or try to get her high again, I will call Omar, I will call Marlo, I will call Avon, I will call Brother Mozone, I will call fucking Bodie, and I will call fucking Stringer, and I will have these motherfuckers standing outside of your front lawn. Do you hear me?
Or even Weebay.
Manipulative?
What if I, suck your dick?
Like in my car?
I'm 17, you fucking creep, sign the slip.
Supportive? Sarcastic? Or funny?
Rick, I sincerely apologize for telling you to go fuck yourself. What I really meant to say is that my mom can do better, and I hate seeing you sit in the chair my dad sat in.
I believe the more fitting question is, what are the first words that come to mind? It is no doubt that Rue is one of the most intriguing personalities we've seen on screen. Great characters are a fundamental ingredient to a great story. The other elements merely spice up the story. Let's dive into Rue's mind by asking ourselves the following. Who is Rue? Why is she such a perfectly written character? What are the dynamics of her relationships? What do they reveal about her character? And what hopes do we have for Rue? Rue had to step up at a young age and take on a huge responsibility, taking care of her father when he became diagnosed with cancer. Due to her mom working longer shifts, Rue was often left unsupervised, which made it easier to abuse her father's medication. She began experimenting with oxy, and it only got worse when her father died. Fortunately, she attended rehab. When she returned home, she promised Leslie and Gia to remain sober. Not so long after, Rue returned to her old habits.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Rue is a sophisticated character from the beginning. She has an interesting past, a complicated present, and a worrying future. Her engrossing persona guides the series to its success. One way Sam Levinson achieves this is by portraying Rue with a range of emotions, flaws, and struggles, making her a multi-dimensional character. She grapples with addiction, mental health issues, and the challenges of growing up, which adds depth to her personality. Her struggles are depicted in a raw and realistic manner. Her journey through addiction and recovery was portrayed with a level of authenticity that resonates with many viewers who may have experienced similar challenges. Sam Levinson has shared his personal attachment to the series.
I think the hardest thing about portraying a drug addict is understanding. There's a lot of there's a lot of cautionary tales. There's a lot of after-school specials. But what I really wanted to get at the core of, which is the pain and the shame about what you're doing, and your inability your inability to get clean despite the havoc and destruction you're wreaking around you. And that is a tricky thing for an actor to pull off, but you do it with a level of warmth and humor and sensitivity that I could never have dreamed of. And thank you for that.
Another factor that comes into play is Sam's ability to capture his ideal audience without imposing any judgment nor condoning any destructive habits. And this is only possible by giving a three-dimensional view of Rue.
I think all young people feel this way. Maybe people in general feel this way of feeling lost, and like there's just so much that you just feel like it's just too much and it's helpless. It's like, why do I even try, you know? So there's that feeling, but then there's moments of hope and there's moments of beauty within those things. And I think that that's what this show does so well, is it explores the dark, but it also, there's hints and moments of light and hope where you see it and you want to hold on to it, and then it's gone. And then you find it again and it's gone. And that's kind of how life works, you know? It is what it is. We're storytellers, and we're here to tell people stories, whether they're ours or not, you know? And I think that's true to life.
Amen.
The most contributing factor to Rue's character is the relationships she forms with other characters. They are intricate and evolve over time. Her dynamics with these characters are explored in depth, revealing interesting things about her. Rue's relationship with Jules highlights her dependency on others for emotional stability. Jules is a source of comfort and distraction for Rue, showing how she uses their relationship to cope with her own inner turmoil. Her intense emotional connection with Jules reflects her deep desire for genuine human connection and love. She yearns for something meaningful that goes beyond her love for drugs. Something interesting to note is how Rue's character is marked by a sense of self-doubt and insecurity, which is evident in her interactions with Jules. She often questions her worthiness of love and struggles with jealousy and fear of abandonment. This leads to impulsive and erratic decisions. I believe Rue's exploration of her sexuality through her relationship with Jules reflects her ongoing search for identity and self-discovery. She may be convinced that her interaction with Jules provide her with a space to better understand herself. I feel as if this relationship lays Rue's multifaceted and complex feelings onto a flat surface for the audience. It showcases her ability to experience intense love, joy, and happiness, but it also highlights her susceptibility to emotional turmoil, especially when the relationship faces challenges. One thing I respect about Rue is her protective nature towards Jules. It reveals her willingness to stand up for those she cares about, even when she herself is struggling. This protective instinct demonstrates her capacity for compassion and empathy. Despite her carefree facade, it also reveals her deep desire for someone else to make her feel the same way. Rue and Leslie's relationship might highlight elements of codependency. Rue's struggles with addiction and mental health could lead to a situation where Leslie feels compelled to take care of her, and where Rue seeks solace or support from Leslie. The dynamics of the relationship reveal their ability, or lack thereof, to communicate and understand each other. Rue's challenges hinder effective communication, and Leslie's attempts to help might not always align with Rue's needs. I believe Leslie is a great mom. She tries to balance Rue's needs with her own well-being. What I noticed is that Rue truly feels the need to express her feelings to her mom, but due to the perceived limitations in their connection, Rue turns elsewhere to seek the support system, and often elsewhere is not the most reliable. However, the evolution of their relationship highlights Rue's growth.
What? That's exciting to you, huh? Being a crackhead? I just feel like there's a catch here. I can't convince you that your life is important. You're gonna have to make that decision on your own. You'll be 18 soon and out of my house. And you're gonna make whatever decisions you're gonna make. I'm taking you off my plate.
Okay.
I'm gonna focus on Gia.
Yeah, but she's fine though.
She's been getting D's in math. Yeah. She's been in detention 3 times in the past 2 weeks. And every morning when I go into her room to make sure she's awake, she already up on the phone. And I know she's not getting any sleep. But if you say she's fine, I'll just take your word for it.
I didn't know any of that.
Why would you? You only ever think about yourself.
It's not true, Mom.
If I have to choose between losing 1 daughter or 2, I'm gonna fight to save her.
No, that's fair.
Rue's relationship with Gia showcases her protective instinct. She often tries to shield Gia from negative influences. This indicates how much she cares for her sister's well-being. But it goes deeper than that. It reflects her feelings of responsibility and guilt as an older sibling. It shows how, although she may act nonchalant about her bad habits, she knows deep down that they are destructive, and she would hate to feel the same way her sister feels about her. Rue displays her desire for a connection and a sense of purpose. Rue finds comfort and motivation in being there for Gia. She strives to provide her with something she did not have, a stable and supportive environment. Most of us would likely hope to see Rue's character embark on a journey of recovery and personal growth, to see Rue building healthier and more supportive relationships with her family and friends, especially her sister Gia. Her experiences could lead to her potentially helping others through their difficulties. I believe Rue will only be happy once she understands herself beyond the limitations she places on herself. Once Rue has understood and accepted who she is, she will be a more confident and fulfilled character. Something that could help her achieve this is learning how to navigate setbacks. Given Rue's artistic inclinations and interests, I might look forward to seeing her channel her creativity into a productive outlet, which would provide her with a sense of purpose and accomplishment. The audience can only anticipate what will finally happen to Rue in the 3rd season, and so many questions arise. Will a new character be introduced in Rue's storyline? Will Rue's relationship with Jules evolve? Will Ali be more involved in Rue's storyline? Would that unravel the mysterious Ali Muhammad's past? Could there be unexpected twists in store for Rue's character? Ultimately, will Rue defeat her addiction?
Lights, camera, action.
Welcome to Doc's Universe, where we dive into the psychological aspects of film and TV shows. For our first video, we're going to be answering the question everyone has been asking. What makes Euphoria different? Before we get into that, let's take a look at what the show is about. If we had to describe it in a single sentence, otherwise known as a logline, we'd say Euphoria is a TV show about a group of teenagers who are trying to find themselves as they grapple with drugs, sex, and violence. Now, I'm certain this logline attracts most of us filmmakers, as we love to dissect controversial and complex subjects. However, to a member of the audience, it might have the opposite effect. It may hint at a rather non-constructive, depressing, or even a morbid show. And this may be due to films and shows in the past which have dealt with similar topics in an unsparing manner and in a way in which they were indigestible to your normal audience. However, that may not be the case with Euphoria. Let's take a look at 3 key factors. Number 1, the show does not shy away from the raw depiction of substance abuse. We witness the youth using drugs, alcohol, and partaking in anonymous sex as a form of escape. What's interesting is that the meaningless sex, unlike most films, is depicted realistically, exposing its discomfort. It is often used as a coping mechanism. For instance, in season 1, episode 6, where McKay and Cassie are getting intimate, and the following happens. And this is why directing is so important. Although there was only a single script to follow, there were 1,000 ways to shoot the scene, which each would have evoked a different feeling. Notice how the director effectively uses inconclusive camera cuts to blur the clarity of what happened. This leaves the viewer disorientated, much like McKay and Cassie. This disorientation gives us, the viewer, a taste of the instability trauma causes in the victim's mind. At this point, the director further solidifies his point by taking us deeper into the dark hole. Let's take a look at how McKay tries to deal with the situation. Euphoria reveals the consequences of abuse and the effect they can have on one's mental health. It plays out the darker side of teenage life. And unlike many shows which deal with similar subjects such as Breaking Bad and Ozark, the audience and setting are different. Many films and shows use adult characters, where Euphoria exploits the struggles of adolescent teenagers, which is quite daring and controversial. This leads us to the second key factor, the effective articulation of trauma on screen. How it ends, the film has undoubtedly stirred different feelings and reactions in the audience, so much so that it's almost impossible to draw up a common or most agreeable conclusion. Some found the film quite intriguing, possibly because of its intangible antagonist, which is an apocalypse caused by an ambiguous event. And ambiguity, as some of us filmmakers know, is a great factor to consider into your screenplay when trying to arouse curiosity. It keeps the audience in their seats. The back end of the audience may toss popcorn at the screen. They may reason the film has a terrible ending. I always disagree with this type of statement, simply because most of the times there is no logical reason to validate this judgment. So what I think the opposing members of the audience meant to say is that the film has a rather inconclusive ending. It did not round up the plot, nor follow a concise outline. An outline is a sensitive subject among screenwriters, since some consider an outline to be a boxing-in factor that results in a generic script, and that avoiding it helps create a more original script. This may be true for films like Pulp Fiction and Magnolia. However, that is not the case with this film. The outline could have been used maybe not to create the script, but refine it. The film's inconsideration of the plot and outline, rather than enhance the story, results in a confusing ending. It's almost as if the writer got tired of writing a good script midway and decided to rush it. Or the production company requested an alternative ending, which is a writer's worst nightmare. The film had one good aspect to it, and that is the interesting relationships between the characters and the articulation of those relationships. So let's see how this was achieved by taking a look at the main character's connection with each of his soon-to-be family members. The film opens up with the classic Hollywood sonogram scene. Will and his partner are sharing a special moment, holding hands and goofing around. This hints at a healthy romantic relationship, but like all relationships, there are obstacles, and in this situation, it seems to be Sam's father, which Will has to break the following news to.
Good. Then you shouldn't worry about tonight either.
Right. Because asking Tom Sutherland for his daughter's hand's gonna be a walk in the park.
Would you rather tell him I'm pregnant?
Funny.
As Will arrives at the house, we establish the relationship he has with his soon-to-be mother-in-law, Paula. She greets him with a warm smile and hug, hinting at her approval of him. However, the interesting relationship is the one between Will and his soon-to-be father-in-law, Tom. Notice how we are introduced to their relationship.
Yeah, you do. I was just about to fix myself another drink. Why don't you see if Paula can use a hand in the kitchen?
Yeah, sure. Anything I can do to help?
Oh, no. You're our guest. Relax.
Tom's wife dismisses Will to give the gentleman some bonding time. Notice how, though this situation is uncomfortable for both characters, there still is mutual respect.
Cheers.
Cheers. How we looking at time, hon?
Not too long. Enjoy your scotch.
The conversation continues, and every time Will tries to make conversation, there's a subtle sarcasm in Tom's voice.
I think it was 5, actually. Sam has the same photo in her loft.
Right. You came with us. How could I forget that?
Later, the characters are enjoying a delicious supper when Will brings up the fact that he and Sam are planning on moving to a different area. And how does Tom handle this?
Providing assistance. I need a guarantee that if it doesn't work out, you can't make any claims to the money that I put down. Not the personal will.
Sorry, I'm a little confused. Did Sam ask you for help?
No, don't worry about any of that, Will. We've helped her brother Stephen, too.
Right. You know that I'm making good money on this job, right?
If memory serves, you were unemployed before you moved to Seattle. Sam had to support both of you for a while there.
Tom believes Will is incapable of providing for Sam. The character's true feelings start unveiling.
I'm only asking because I suspect that Will moved because he thought it would be easier. Because he thought it would be more secure if he moved my daughter away from me.
Moving was Sam's idea.
Come on. You know what? I doubt it.
Let's backtrack a little. Notice the close-up shots of the frame photos of Tom and his achievements? The director intentionally uses close-up shots to hint at Tom's character, principles, and values. Tom, being the typical former militant, believes a man should provide, be disciplined, and be able to protect his family physically. Will deems himself fit for Tom's daughter and feels as if Tom's opinion of him is solely biased. At this point, Will has had enough.
Sam would have told me that.
Oh, yeah? I think she would have told you that she wanted to move away to start her own life on her own terms with me, without our father breathing down her fucking neck all the time.
Go ahead, say what you got to say. Spit it out. You know, let us know how you really feel, Will.
Sorry.
Get it off your chest. But just don't swear in front of my wife.
As we progress in the film, the suspension and tension build. Will and Tom journey on a life and death trip to save Sam. And when they are faced with obstacles, we take note of our contrasting personalities.
Nice car, cutie. Want to show me the back seat?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Excuse me? What'd you say?
What are you talking about?
What's going on, Eliza?
This piece of shit just called me a slut.
What? Whoa, no. Hey, yeah. I didn't call you a slut. I think it's gonna fucking cost you, man.
Okay. Don't do that. That's my car.
Shut the fuck up, old man! Hey, Pops. Come on, I know you got some cash.
All right. Money's in my luggage.
In other words, Eliza. What are you looking at?
Whoa. Jesus Christ, Tom.
Get back in the car, Will. Start running and don't look back.
Punk.
What are the implications of their different personalities? Tom handles the situation in a much more physical manner versus Will, who tries to solve it verbally, which is impractical given the situation. This causes a bigger problem for Will, making him seem incapable of protecting Sam.
Should have told me.
Told you what?
Told me that you had a gun.
And what would you have said, Will? I mean, I'm assuming that you've never fired a firearm before.
No, I haven't used a firearm, but it's not exactly a priority of my law firm, is it?
You know what, Will? What if they had taken this car? Game over. It would be game over.
Later, they find out that the road which they need to use is closed off by the military. Will sees no way past this unfortunate situation. However, Tom finds a way. He takes advantage of his former occupational background to gain favor with the soldier, who then lets them through. Tom is able to think fast under pressure, where Will often is stuck in a state of shock or hopelessness. Consider the scene where Will is being chased and he can't operate a firearm.
How do I do it? Put the mag in the gun. Hit the side, the button on the side. Shoot! He's got the window. Shoot! Shoot! Fuck! It's not working! Pull it back!
Let's not forget the reason they're in this mess in the first place is because of Will's inexperience with harsh environments. He often doesn't spot the traps. Interestingly, Will is exposed to the darker side of the world. Later, Tom becomes heavily injured. This forces Will to grab the wheel and adapt to the harsh surroundings.
You know how to use this? Yeah. Take it.
Tom is the more realistic individual, and it certainly has been beneficial to their journey as it has gotten this far. Will is the more idealistic individual. Although many may side with Tom for survival, Will proves how idealism can be beneficial in certain situations. Take the scene where Will and Tom are accompanied by a mechanic. An incident occurs which almost forces Tom to abandon the mechanic in order to save himself and Will. However, Will puts his foot down and ultimately makes the more humane yet risky decision to save the mechanic, which pays off. At this point, Will has slightly diluted Tom's biased opinion of him. Will is adapting at a rapid pace without compromising his values. He later becomes more useful by using his connections and learning how to survive the difficult journey. Something happens later that adds the cherry on top. The film earlier alluded to the boat story, a boat which Tom owned and Will accidentally destroyed. We later uncover a surprising truth.
You know that shit you gave me over the last 6 years? The really funny thing is you think it was me that was driving that boat when it crashed into the rock.
Yeah, Sam?
Yeah, hell yeah. She was drunk. I mean, drunk as anything. I mean, we both were. And, you know, when we came down in the morning, and we see the boat had sunk to the bottom of the fucking lake, I mean, I don't know, I just thought it was the right thing to do, you know?
Will proves his sacrificing spirit. This opens up Tom's heart. For the first time, he shares a personal story with Will. They finally share an intimate and genuine moment. So how does it end?
Tom.
Love, Death and Robots. At first the title made me think of a rather aimless commercial show, aimed at attracting an audience using a generic sci-fi plot and characters. However, I was humbled by its ability to dive into the deep analogies and philosophies, including the desire and power of time travel, and how manipulating a trivial event can have a significant effect on the historic event. Some of its powerful themes include the evasive and dark approach of the future and its implications. But one aspect that stood out to me was how the show was able to, through the use of short films, deliver intriguing characters and thought-provoking philosophies. One of my favorite philosophy-driven episodes is Zima Blue. Let's discuss the philosophy in detail by taking a look at the plot summary of the film. But before we do that, subscribe and switch on post notifications. The film opens up with a beautiful and aesthetically pleasing shot. The blue hints at the main character's obsessive and compulsive search for purity. The woman traveling to our main character Zima is Claire Markham, a reporter. There have been many reductive assumptions made of Zima, such as that he was an intimidating man who was so obsessed with abstract art that he underwent major cybernetic procedures so he could see into realms the simple human mind could not see. and survive extreme conditions. Most assumed the motive of his art was purely to gain immense fame and power, but Claire always suspected a deeper motive to Zima's art, so much so that she accepted Zima's invitation. And at first sight of Zima, she learned everything people had told her was inaccurate.
Relax, Claire.
Hi.
Some people find me intimidating, but they quickly get over it. It's been over 100 years since I've spoken to the press. I've invited you here because I want you to help me tell my story. Shall we take a little walk?
He was a handsome man, even after all his transformations.
Zima reveals his final project, to which Claire asks,
And what does the swimming pool have to do with that?
It's not just any swimming pool.
Zima tells Claire an interesting story of a woman who had a great interest in robotics, that she created machines to perform odd jobs around the house. She was especially fond of one she had created to clean her pool. The machine scrubbed the ceramic tiles day in and day out, but the creator was not fully satisfied with its performance, so she enhanced it and gave it a full color vision system and a brain big enough to process the visual data into a model of its surroundings. It could now make its own decisions, such as what type of strategies it should use to clean the pool. The woman eventually died, and the machine was passed on from one owner to another, each generation modifying it until it became more
me.
So how did it all end? Zima's so-called finale was rather an interesting one. The crowd had expected him to perform something bizarre. Instead, Zima chose to end it all in the same manner in which it began.
I will immerse myself as I will slowly shut down my higher brain functions.
Emphasizing the point of art being most beautiful in its simplistic state.
Unmaking myself. Leaving just enough to appreciate my surroundings. To extract some simple pleasure from the execution of a task well done. My search for truth is finished at last. I'm going home.
What does it all mean? There have been several conclusions, the main one being how at times we as humans search for money, power, and other fleshly desires. So much so that we forget that true happiness is obtained from the simple things we do on a daily basis. However, I would take it a step further and apply it to a different scenario. All artists start out with a pure intention and unwillingness to conform to the political and commercial misconceptions of art. However, the societal pressures force them to divert from the original work for the sake of consumerism. The wealth may make life easy, but the happiness is a thing that grants them fulfillment. And some die satisfying the world without personal fulfillment. Yet some, like Zima, die having lived a satisfactory life, dissatisfying the rest of the world. Simply put, extravagance will drain the joy in your victory, where simplicity will leave you content in your moment of defeat. Once upon a time in history, films contained no sound. That means there weren't any sound effects or dialogue accompanying the visuals. Yes, no voice dubbing, voiceover, or sound effects were added to the film. For the modern generation, this may be hard to comprehend. Interestingly, the concept of combining sound and visuals was not necessarily a foreign concept to film studios. In fact, one could say it's as old as film itself. But because of the major technical difficulties involved, the films remained silent till the late 1920s. The period before the transition into sound was known as the silent era. One may ask, if there was no sound, how could you tell what the actors were saying? Just like a typical sci-fi film would provide us with the exposition by use of titles at the beginning of a film, silent films would make use of the same method. Instead, they would place the titles between the dialogue. These titles are commonly referred to as the intertitles. Intertitles at a point became graphic elements containing abstract art or illustrations. They would describe the action or enhance the film's atmosphere or mood. The title writer was a significant crew member in the silent era and was separate from the scenario writer of a film. Sound enhanced the art of film. Later, silent films were replaced by talking pictures, or talkies as they would call them. Many of the film traditionalists were not fans of this change, as they believed this transition had a negative impact on the aesthetic quality of films. The gradually degrading quality was not due to sound. Often the films were adapted for television, and they may have been extracted from a generation of copies which were from damaged stock. They would end up being played at incorrect speeds, accompanied by inharmonious music. The modern audience has expressed how they find silent films to be boring. Some film geeks have expressed their distaste for silent films. They only watch them for educational purposes. It could be due to the seemingly shallow stories, extended scenes where nothing significant happens, as well as the exaggerated acting, or simply the lack of dialogue and sound effects, which would normally add dimension to a story. However, during the silent era, people considered them masterpieces. What is my take on silent films? Well, I believe people judge them from a close-up. Let's pull the camera back and have a look at the wider shot. You must probably be thinking it must have been extremely awkward to sit in a cinema where the only thing audible was the shuffling of popcorn and the sounds of people making out. Surprisingly, it wasn't as awkward as you think. An in-house musician or musicians would often play to a score. In the primitive years of silent films, the score was improvised. But later, as film advanced, scores with a specific cue sheet were provided to the cinemas. Some composers would manipulate certain instruments to sound like sound effects. This added dimension to the films, as it helped identify the mood, atmosphere, and feeling in a scene. In Japan, films grew to have a benshi, which was a narrator who voiced over the film or provided character voices. Yes, the irony is that the silent films contained an adequate measure of music. This must have been a great experience. I would have killed just to experience watching a silent film within these circumstances. It must have been a thrilling experience. Another interesting aspect was the acting. The term exaggerated would not be an appropriate description when describing the performances. Rather, I would say there was great emphasis on the body language and facial expressions. This would seem like the logical approach. Think of modern music videos that contain no dialogue. The actors in the music videos often have to place emphasis on their actions to communicate the message clearly. Silent films were shot differently to sound films. The acting, combined with the low rate the film was shot at, provided these jerky, comical performances, which is probably why most of the popular silent films today tend to be the comedies. I believe it would be a challenge to perform in a silent drama, as the actor would require a high degree of skill to act out the subtlety. It would be interesting to see an actor such as Ryan Gosling, who is a master in this field, attempt to pull this off. There were plenty of silent films which were produced. Most of them will remain a mystery as they were lost. I was reading a list of lost films. I came across an interesting title which reminded me of a modern film, The Great Gatsby. It would be very interesting to witness a silent version of this film. The production of silent films decreased shortly after sound was introduced. What impact did this have on the film industry? Let's take a look at what the atmosphere was like on set during the silent era. A hypnotizing suspense. That is the description that came to mind during the first 10 seconds of the film. The Witness is a masterpiece. It's ambiguous, yet the captivating plot is the heart of the film. The film contains effective elements that make for a fascinating story. We will take a look at how the film achieves this by dissecting the visuals and the plot, uncovering the hidden meaning and mind-blowing analogy. This episode was directed by Alberto Mielgo, who is a visual consultant on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, hence the similar visuals and techniques in the animation. The city in which the film takes place is inspired by neon-hued colors, giving it an edgy look and intensifying the suspense. If you look closely, you'll notice how the subjects and the surroundings are traced with black lining, along with the use of a wet color palette, which serves great purpose in making the film feel more like a comic book. The low-angled shots enlarge the characters. Their presence is emphasized by isolating them from the world. This is further done by masking every other character. The only people we're focused on is the woman and the killer. Another interesting animation technique is the displaying of animatopia. It not only serves as a stylistic choice, but also assists in dramatizing the action. Something else that came to my attention was the use of the shaky camera effect, which is rarely used in animation. Interestingly, its use in this film is not merely to enhance the action, but rather the ferocity of the chase, which is probably why the camera shakes feel less natural. Notice how at times the character's blood or breath projects onto the screen. This makes us feel closer to the characters, as if we are the ones witnessing this tragedy. How does it all begin? The woman flees from her apartment after witnessing a murder in an apartment across a hotel. She flees after being spotted by the killer. She is chased through the futuristic Asian city. The woman manages to escape, and her first decision after witnessing this traumatic event is to continue with her day job as a sex worker.
Vladimir, leave a message.
Vladimir, I'm on my way there. Please be there.
Until she bumps into the killer again. The chase continues. She finds refuge in an apartment only to find out that she has exposed herself to danger. It's the killer's apartment. The woman draws a gun and the killer tries to calm her down, but a struggle ensues. She accidentally shoots him, taking his life. she looks out the window and spots a man identical to the one she has just shot. Suddenly, she comes to an unfortunate realization. We are now aware that the man was merely trying to reason with her. At this point, it's safe to say this loop will never cease, because neither one of the characters will ever have reasonable doubt when it comes to the other's guilt. What does it all mean? There have been several conclusions. Some have refused to see it from a metaphoric perspective and have chosen to take it in a literal sense. That she's a sex worker and he's with in the first loop because he purchased her services. Some arguments ensued that ended up in the sex worker's death, thus implicating that sex work, in the long run, results in the detriment of lives, whether it be the buyer's life or the seller's life. Several other conclusions dwell in the spirit realm. They believe their characters are dead, and that this is a hell loop, hence the empty streets, the endless cycle of torment, and the fact that when either one of them spots the killing, they don't remember the previous loop. Others may see it in a more symbolic sense. They believe the film represents a toxic relationship. Both parties always return to the same abuse they attempt to escape from. They continuously take turns playing the victim. It's a love and hate relationship. Both parties are afraid of being alone in a warm bed, so they always revisit the dark and cold basement because it's all they know. All these conclusions are interesting. However, I have a different analogy. For me, it represents sympathy. Empathy is a word that's often confused with sympathy. Empathy is our ability to understand how someone feels, while sympathy is our relief in not having the same problems. In other words, empathy incites action, whereas sympathy incites pity. With that in mind, let's break down the following. The woman refuses, not willingly, but instinctively, to believe the man merely wants to talk to her. To be fair, anyone in her shoes would have acted in the same manner, since we all live in a realistic world. Not even in an idealistic world, the woman chooses to believe the man. We as humans can only dream of having the same mental capacity of a higher being, to see past the surface. We unfortunately are not equipped to do so. So we take things at face value. Because one does not starve, he can never comprehend that the other starves because he has no choice. You see, to the one who is not starving, the starving one may seem as if he is lazy, incompetent, or even content in his suffering. Therefore, he would never assist the starving one. The well-fed individual does not acknowledge the external forces at play, such as unforeseen circumstances. As soon as the starving individual and the well-fed individual switch places, the newly well-fed individual has grown an unrealistic fear over his financial security that he could not bear to hand even a single apple to the newly starving individual, and this cycle of sympathy continues. This same analogy could be applied to religion, race, gender, and many other dividers in life. Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are on the analogy. Waves is an incredible film. Unlike other teen dramas, it takes on a more profound approach. It shows how we as humans are interlinked, despite how modern society has clothed us with inhumane qualities. The film reveals the great tragedy, but also the undeniable beauty of life. At its core, it conveys a desire for benevolence and pardoning, I was impressed by the director Trey Edward Schultz, who has also directed other films such as Creature, which was rated a decent 7.1 on IMDb. What impressed me the most about his work was his level of ambition, accompanied by his unbridled confidence. It's the fact that he was not afraid to challenge himself and work outside the traditional structure of a film. Trey also made use of other techniques, such as aspect ratio, to intensify the emotion and atmosphere on screen. Rather than playing it safe, he took a risk that not only made him a great director, but a director with a voice. The opening of Waves gives a glimpse into Tyler's joyous and thriving life. Tyler is spending time with his girlfriend Alexis. The initial rotating shot indicates a world filled with euphoria, blurring the line between love and obsession. The cool color palette hints at the comfort of his relationship with Alexis. It lays out a perfect veil of normalcy. The overuse of close-ups and zooming in emphasizes their unbreakable bond. It is almost impossible to think anything could separate them until a threat enters Tyler's world. Everything falls apart for Tyler. His senior year and college prospects could be ruined by a shoulder injury. The absence of a supportive structure makes it a heavier burden. Tyler is unable to cope with his entire life plan being dismantled. He secretly takes pain medication, which only worsens his situation. As mentioned earlier, the director extensively tightens the aspect ratio as the tension builds, indicating that Tyler's world is collapsing. It dawns on him that Alexis is carrying his child. They come to an agreement, deciding on an abortion, but then things take a nasty turn.
What do you mean you couldn't do it?
I don't know.
I mean, babe, why would you just do it while we were there? We could have did it while we were there. I mean,
I'm just
I don't want to have to go confused about what? Talk about what?
We need to just
We talked about it. What more is there to talk about?
Why are you yelling at me?
I'm not yelling at you.
Just as we think things can't get any worse, Alexis decides to end things with Tyler. Tyler becomes even more devastated when he suspects Alexis has moved on with someone else. Due to both parties being irrational, there is poor communication, which leads to misinterpretations, giving birth to a tragedy.
It's not bullshit. You
It's
would
bullshit,
know that
man.
if you listen to anything I ever say. And the drinks aren't for me, they're for my friends, the ones upstairs that you never took the chance to get to know. You don't care about anyone but your
Stop fucking lying.
self. That's why I
I
can't
care
talk
about
to
nobody
you.
but my fucking self right now. Fucking walk away from me.
Fuck
Listen,
you.
listen.
Move.
Yeah, we can keep it, Alexis. Alexis, let's look at me. Look at me. Look at me. We can fucking keep it. We can keep it. We don't have to get a fucking abortion.
Fuck you. You think I'm gonna raise my baby with you? Look at you.
You give me shit for all that shit.
Fuck you.
Watching Waves requires some patience due to its length and pace, but the emotional moments in the second half come as a reward and are worth waiting for. There are so many sides to the story, and we have only scratched the surface. We may be curious about a lot of things. Is Tyler a bad person? Was Tyler's father's extreme method of parenting the reason for Tyler's downfall? How does the second part of the story make up for the tragedy? Is the unconventional structure of the film effective? There are plenty of gems to uncover from this remarkable film. Stay tuned.